And we're just going to take this in alpha order to start. Gene,
okay.
welcome.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Okay, thank you to the NAACP for holding this forum, and it's a pleasure to be here on this very snowy evening. It is something important to me to make my message known. That I've been in this village for 38 years. I've raised my family in the village, and I have two adult children at this time. And my wife and I have basically raised our kids being responsible adults. One's in the U.S. Navy, and the other is in the police force. The one that's in the police force sort of followed after my own footsteps. I've been in the police force for about 29 years. And after I retired, I decided to take on a new job. And the job was basically to work for the village of Portchester in a volunteer capacity as an individual that has no pay, but I believe that the benefits for this village were enormous for the things that I could do. So I put myself to task. I ran several cleanup days, Pride in Portchester days. I targeted the MTA for the conditions at our train station, at the Portchester train station, which were very deplorable at the time. Bathrooms and such were all in a disgraceful condition. There was litter all over. There was no vertical access to get to the northbound platform to go to Connecticut. So I've had the newspaper. I've invited them to come and tour the MTA facility with me, and also to work on getting the MTA to come and work with me to walk through the entire train station to see what was in disrepair. My intentions are to fulfill the master plan's mission. This is a mission that I've worked on. I was with the comprehensive plan for 5 years. Basically, it's quality homes at affordable prices, the vibrant downtown, our cultural diversity, which in Portchester we have a great mix, racial mix, a great ethnic mix, to promote that through Portchester Fests and other types of cultural type affairs. We have the gem of our parks, our recreation. We have, I believe, the greatest fire department, police department, emergency medical services, and DPW. They're the best by far. The services we get in this village are terrific. And I'm proud to be in this village and to continue my volunteer work for it, and also as a Board of Trustee member, and hopefully to be your next mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Dennis?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Whoever braved in the snow, I really appreciate that. I think this is very, very important to have these types of dialogues. And most of you know me, but for those of you who don't, I see some faces in the audience. I'm proud to have served as Portchester's mayor for 6 years, from 2007 to 2013. Before that, I was elected trustee for 1 year in 2006. And while I was mayor, I actually served on the executive committee of Westchester Municipal Officials Association, and I was their president from 2012 to 2013. So I actually have some pretty significant experience in local government. I'm actually going to school, as a matter of fact, for pursuing my MPA degree at Baruch College in an executive MPA program there, and I'm learning a lot, even more than the experience I got while I was on the job for 6 years here as mayor. When I took office in 2007, the village was in poor financial condition. Our taxes were skyrocketing, the downtown was stagnant, there was corruption in the code enforcement department with parking meter collections. In the time that I was mayor, we straightened out the finances. The bond rating got upgraded to a very solid and prestigious AA, the highest rating in the village's history. It was done at a time in the Great Recession when other municipalities' bond rating was going down. That really enabled us to refinance a lot of debt, and it enabled us to set us in a different direction financially. We made some very strategic moves while I was mayor, like pushing for the master plan, like pushing to eliminate lifetime benefits for part-time elected officials. And the master plan really was monumental to the village, because we updated all the obsolete zoning, we updated laws that enabled restaurants and stores, and Capitol Theater specifically, to come into town. Music, actually, musical entertainment wasn't allowed before that, and so I'm very, very proud of that. In the past 2 years that I've been out of office, the village seems to have been sliding in a backward direction somewhat, no disrespect. Taxes are starting to increase again, the assessables are declining, and we really haven't progressed with important projects like the bulkhead, and really so many things, like the police station. I'm running for office because I want to put the village back in the right direction. I want to stop the $40 million municipal center. I want to do something to fix the police station. I want to fix the bulkhead. I want to finish what I started. And I really want to create a village of opportunity and equality for every resident in this village. And that's what I'm all about. I look forward to our debate, discussion.
Thank you both. Does anyone in the audience have a question for either candidate Ciccarelli or candidate Pella? Okay, Brian?
What's your opinion on Starwood?
My opinion on it?
Is it for either?
Both.
Okay, what is your question?
What's your opinion on the Starwood project?
My opinion on the Starwood project, that it's a terrific project, basically, and it's going to bring a great development piece to our village. And we have a very good plan in place that the mayor, Pagano, Dan Breakwood, and myself, we worked on a subcommittee to bring together a great proposal from Starwood. We met with them several times. We weren't happy with their original proposal, which is about 820 apartment units with about 20,000 feet of commercial space. That was a non-starter. We would never go for that. So we put together this. The mayor put together a bipartisan subcommittee, and we worked together to work with the Starwood Capital folks and to bring about a great planned mixed-use project that brings down the number of apartments that are going to be built there. They made them smaller to attract the millennial type generation, probably even in your generation, to make a smaller type of apartment, to give us more retail, commercial, to give us wellness, medical for seniors, a population for senior, about 230 units for seniors that will be age restricted from 55 and above. So we think it's a great plan. It's night and day from when it was in the prior administration.
Thank you. Mr. Keller?
Sure. Starwood Capital bought United Hospital in 2004. They changed their direction with the projects that they brought to the table of the village 3 times. First, it was going to be near 1 million square feet and a public plaza and a lot of retail and a hotel and apartments. And then the economy, the Great Recession hit, and they went away for a couple of years. They changed teams and they came back with a project that was 820 units. It was only residential rental housing. I was strongly opposed to that. Unfortunately, the Republicans, I don't mean to sound partisan, but it really was a partisan divide on this particular issue, favored it. And even though they ran for election saying no residential housing, they actually voted for it. And thank goodness we didn't have 4 votes to move that forward. The current proposal has some good points and it has some bad points. The hotel, the medical facility, the senior housing, I think are very good. I think the proffer, the upfront payment that they're talking about, and the pilot are extremely uncertain. I want to see them pay their fair share of taxes. When they had the other proffer before, they wanted to pay about $2,500 per unit for taxes, and the equivalent of that per year, and that's too low. So I think they need to pay their fair share. I think the proffer has to go towards the school proportionally, and I think they have to pay the right amount of taxes.
Okay, thank you.
And amount of time.
Yes. Oh, Blanca?
If mayor, what would you do to address the lack of affordable or workforce housing in the village?
Is that for G only?
Yes,
For both?
sorry, yes.
Okay. So we'll direct it to G.
Okay. Basically, I mean, we've looked very carefully at the affordable housing picture in Dorchester, and fortunately, we weren't brought up in that fair housing settlement. You know, we were one of the maybe eight municipalities that weren't targeted because of our affordable housing that Portchester has done generously in terms of trying to provide housing for people that of lower income and different income levels. I've done some research on it. There are quite a number of affordable housing units in the village, and you know, I love the idea of affordable housing. I'm all for it, but I feel that we've reached a point that we've provided plenty, and I think that going forward, assessables are important to this village. If you don't have properties that are assessed at what they should be at their full value, the whole village basically suffers for that. It makes our taxes go up because it's not providing enough support for the people that live in our village. So I always say affordable housing is also to make it affordable for people to live here, the seniors, the ones that are still on fixed income, retirees, to make it affordable for them to live. But quite honestly, Blank, I feel that we've reached our level of affordable housing, and I don't feel that there's a need to continue to develop more.
Thank you. Mr. Pillar, do you want to answer?
So, sure. So if I heard Mr. Ciccarelli correctly, he said he likes it, he's all for it, but he doesn't want it. So he doesn't want it. I think it's important. I think it's important because people like you can't afford to live in Rhinebeck where you live, Brian, right? And seniors can't afford to stay in their homes, right? So when we talk about affordable housing, we're really not talking about low-income projects and things like that. But what are we talking about, right? And your question, though, is what I would do. I would stop the $40 million municipal center. I would try to reclaim the $400,000 that should have been used for housing rehabilitation and making housing affordable. That was specifically what that $400,000 was used, not to design a better village hall. And I would put that to a housing rehabilitation program, right? That would be linked to the amnesty program and would be tied to making housing affordable, to revitalize neighborhoods, particularly the ones where there are middle-income people living, so we can improve the aesthetics and revitalize the neighborhood. I would pursue CDBG grants so that we can strategically use federal money to create programs for housing affordability. And I would also seek out developers and development specifically for senior housing that is affordable. I think that's key and strategic for Portchester.
Okay, thank you.
Is there
Fred?
is there a rebuttal on this, though, or any rebuttal?
We didn't save space for rebuttal, but
Because I'd like to comment. Yeah.
why not?
Yeah. I would just
Sure.
like to comment on
30
that.
seconds.
You give him a minute rebuttal.
Okay. All right.
Hold on,
basically-
let's make sure he's
Yeah, I got
ready
it.
to go. Okay.
Yeah, I want to clear the inaccuracy that our prior mayor is bringing up about liking affordable housing. Yes, I do like it, and I think that the towns and the villages that don't have it should be putting it in. I was very much upset about Rybrook putting affordable housing in our school district, the city of Rye putting it in basically within the Portchester. I said, if you're going to build affordable housing, do it in the spirit of what HUD basically said, to put it in relatively white, wealthy areas and put it in the heart of those villages and municipalities, not basically in our village. So that's where I like the affordable housing.
There's still 30 seconds.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I pretty much answered the question. I just and this $400,000 rehab that Mr. Pillar is talking about is a drop in the bucket. It's really a small. $400,000 is a small amount. I mean, how many houses are you going to rehab for $400,000? I don't know how many that would cover, but I know that $400,000 is well spent money on trying to give us a price on what we need to do to make an economic development project prosperous in our village.
Okay, let's move on. Fred, did you have a question?
Just before, apparently Mr. P is against the new public town hall police department. Mr. Director, why are you in favor of establishing building that building in that particular area?
Okay, thank you for that question. It's great. Right now we have a village hall that is an old school building. It's about somewhere around 95 years old. We have an old police station and a courthouse that is in very bad disrepair. It's falling apart. It's costing the village, and this is going back to the mayor's time when he left this police station basically fall apart. We didn't do anything about it. It's costing us about $400,000 a year to maintain those buildings, to maintain the village hall as it is and the police station as it is. Mr. Pilla had a study done in 2009 that basically identified all different options. As much as he denies it or doesn't say it publicly in the newspapers or publicly even here, he had this study done that basically said that a municipal center is something that would benefit this village to the point of bringing the police department and the village hall together, bringing village offices into the fold, and putting them into an area that was picked as the highest and best use of that particular area, Irving and Paningo, to better raise the quality of the area around that section, and to bring bring the houses up to and business interest into our village that would raise the assessed values in that area and bring it up to a point that we can reduce our tax load to better develop that area. But the bottom line is we need a police station and a courthouse. It's falling apart, and it was never designed to be a municipal center.
Thank you, Mr. Ciccarelli. Dennis, would you like a minute?
Sure. Thank you very much. Back to what Gene said on affordable housing, though. He likes it, he's for it, but not in my backyard, NIMBY. Okay, $400,000, drop in the bucket. Is $400,000 a drop in the bucket to you, sir? It's not to me, right? I'm sorry, and that's why we're heading in a bad financial direction here, to tell you the truth. We're a village, not a city. We have to act with strategic precision, surgical precision here, right? Mr. Ciccarelli said that I'm denying a study. I'm not denying anything. I'm proud of the study that we did. We did a study. We looked at options. Frankly, the option that they're pursuing, this $42,000, when I saw page 14 on the July 7th agenda, the most expensive option. They didn't fully consider other options. We could have bought the Gateway building to have an integrated village hall there. But the fact is there's $9 million left on our existing village hall, and we shouldn't take a loss on that. We do have to do something with our police station. We have to do it in a way that taxpayers can afford. We waited 2 years, actually. He's talking about me not doing anything. I don't see a lot of progress here in 2 years.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pilla. Any other questions? Brian?
For both candidates, what's your opinion on the ride dissolution? Do you support it or no, and why?
Gene?
Okay, I'm answering the first questions all the time, but that's
You want me to go
okay.
first?
That's all right,
I don't
I'll take
mind.
it. I'll take it.
Don't
Okay,
shoot.
Town of Rye.
Hold on a second.
I didn't hear the question. Repeat
The
the
town
question.
of ride dissolution.
Do they,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you support it?
The town of Rye, what I'd like, I basically think it's good to get rid of a layer of government, and it's not a bad thing. But as far as how that will pan out for the village of Portchester, I want to see some real economic value to doing that. I want to make sure that Portchester benefits from this dissolution. So right now, there was a 6-year study done on that particular project, and Mr. Pilla was part of that project. It took 6 years for them to reach a conclusion. Actually, I take that back. They did not reach a conclusion. They were basically given a report from the from government research organization, and they were to make a decision on whether or not to go forward with that. Right now, this is something that we will take a serious look at to see whether or not this is beneficial to the village. I'd like to see maybe that being a leaping ground to possible city status at some point, because if we get city status, you need to remove that layer of the town government and become like co-terminus government, basically. So to eliminate that gives us an opportunity to send our assemblyman, Steve Otis, up to Albany to draft legislation and to give us an opportunity to see if we can get our sales tax so that the village of Portchester collects its sales tax instead of giving it away to the county and to the state to divvy up at a later time. So yes, I am for it, but I want to see all the results, and I want to get a good recommendation from his subcommittee to basically say, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Because they studied it for 6 years. Somebody should have come out with a conclusion and a recommendation, and I haven't seen yet a formal recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Ciccarelli. Dennis?
Sure. Brian, I think it's a great idea to explore all options for government efficiency. In the private sector where I work, that's what we do. We consolidate things, right? And actually, I'm proud to say that I actually got that grant, the $55,000 grant. At the time, town dissolution wasn't a part of the local government efficiency program. I went up to Albany. I lobbied with Andrew Cuomo's Attorney General office. and the Department of State. I got them to change the grant program to have us consider studying it. I worked with Mayor Feinstein to convince Supervisor Carvin and the Mayor of Mamaroneck to partner with us, and we did the study. Mr. Ciccarelli it was complaining, too strong a word, I apologize, Gene, about the report not presenting recommendations. The very nature of the report and the project is not to present recommendations because it's not a one-size-fits-all for Rye Town, for Rye Neck, for Portchester. The report was designed to present facts, and that's what it did. In terms of where I am and what I think, the facts have changed. Economically, there's a lot of money on the table for the Village of Portchester with increased sales tax revenue, with increased mortgage recording tax. It's unsure whether we'll get a property tax rebate, but there are sticking issues with Crawford Park and with the bridges. Rye Town sold their property assets. That was money I would have liked to have seen put in a fund to pay for the Mamaroneck bridges where you live. Now that changes the financials. We have to revisit it quickly and then put it to the vote for the people to decide. Thank you.
Okay. Fred, any other questions?
Oh, yes. For both candidates.
We'll start with Dennis this time.
Oh, okay. Under your leadership as mayor, what overall adjustments should occur with village personnel?
What, I'm sorry, could you repeat the
Under
question?
your leadership as mayor, what overall adjustments should occur with village personnel, regarding village personnel?
That's a very good question. I think the village has to continually assess its needs and the resource that it brings to bear to provide services and solve the problems that we face. Fred, I believe in a Shamrock organization, it's called, okay? Where you have a core of workers that are essential to provide services, and in a municipal corporation, that core includes the police department, that core includes our DPW crew. You know, I did a study, actually, we did a study to consider outsourcing the DPW. And we had a developer pay for that, so it wasn't at the taxpayer's expense. And while the study revealed that for sanitation there would be small positive upside to outsourcing it, there were sticking issues, like a night like tonight. There are 13 guys on sanitation. They work round the clock and they work tirelessly to plow our roads and things like that. Those things have to be considered. At the same time, however, you need to have a flexible part-time workforce that you could use to adjust to the ebbs and flows of your high seasons and low seasons, like with amnesty or the building season and things like that. And you do need to consider outsourcing, I think, where it makes sense, to bring in vertical centers of excellence, they call them, the private sector, specialists that can help as needed for things, what's a good example? Like billing in the ambulance. We outsource the back office billing for the ambulance. So I think that combo approach is what the village needs to continue to consider. Thank you.
G?
Okay, sure. Basically, when I think of the village personnel, I think of our people, our staff people that are in Village Hall right now. They basically run the operation. They run the day-to-day operations of this village. Without them, we'd be hurting badly. And we have such a professional staff of people in that Village Hall that I'm just proud to be a part of this village. We have the best village manager that by far that I've ever seen. I mean, this individual is so good at his work, and he does such a terrific job. He's so professional. Sometimes I wonder how he accomplishes everything he does. But it's his staff, the professional staff that have been hired over the years, that have been put in place, that do a terrific job in running things. They see through everything from our sanitation, our police department, our DPW ambulance. Everything is under the umbrella of our village staff. I mean, we're trustees. We basically set policy, but these people have their boots on the ground, basically, and the ones that run this village. As far as having them, what I'd like to do is have them do their jobs. Unfortunately, when Mr. Pillow was the mayor, he micromanaged, which he shouldn't have done. He tried to oversee what the village manager was doing. We have a strong village manager and a weak council, basically, system. But Dennis oversaw the village manager and put so much pressure on this individual. I've never seen this person looking so dejected in my life when I see him in the hallway. And I could kind of see where the direction was, where Dennis felt that he wasn't going to lead, basically. What he wanted to do was rule, and that was wrong.
Can I rebut, please?
You have a minute to do that.
But before we rebut, both gentlemen, I heard the police department and DPW. I have a concern regarding our fire department and the contractual issues, both as mayors. It's my understanding, and I might be wrong, that we only have 3 paid firemen in the village of Portchester, large as this village is. As a homeowner, I'm kind of leery of this, how it's set up. How is that being rectified?
Dennis, do you want to take
you
your
want to do a
minute?
rebuttal first and
Let-
then
yes, let Dennis do his
I
rebuttal
suggest-
first and then
Because
we'll-
honestly, I think you want a minute and a half answer on that one.
Yes, I do.
I'm
Maybe longer.
So
Um,
Dennis gets a minute for this?
Yes.
Yeah, and I won't even take a minute, you know. It's a weak mayor form of government, right? The village manager, I hired the guy basically, right? I was part of the board that brought in the professional staff. I'm very, very proud of the team that we have in Portchester. Here's how my philosophy of management. Find good people, give them meaningful work, get out of their way, right? I am not allowed by law to micromanage them, right? That would be literally a crime, right? And I haven't been convicted of any, so I think Mr. Ciccarelli, who wasn't on the job at the time, is inaccurate in what he's saying. I do think that leadership, it means holding people accountable, and I'll tell you this, when I was mayor, they got a lot more done than they're doing when I wasn't, and I'll just leave it like that. I think people need to be accountable.
Okay, so then-
respond to that, or just basically is it?
We have that one rebuttal.
Okay, that's good.
So we're going to move on to Fred's question about
Sure.
Regarding the fire department.
fire department personnel
Okay.
and 3 permanent members of the
Sure.
fire department. Dennis, do you want to start out?
Sure. So, in my estimation, so I was president of the Westchester Municipal Officials Association, so I got to talk to every mayor in Westchester County. And every one of them, well, not everyone, but many of them would come up to me and sit there and say, and they'd marvel, because, you know, A, we have such a tremendous, active, volunteer, professional firefighting force. And we have a hybrid. We're budgeted for 11 paid professionals, and they had been working very, very cohesively with the volunteer professionals. And that was working very, very well. All of a sudden, we're still budgeted for 11, but there are only 3. I'm going to tell you a funny story, Fred. I went to the fire department today because I wanted to take a picture of the fire trucks that they bought when I was mayor. They were all closed except for one, right? So honestly, if those trucks have to go out and put the fire out in your house, the volunteers are great, don't get me wrong, but if they're not there and that truck doesn't go out, they have to come from home, they have to get the truck, they got to bring it there, and they got to hook it up to water. That's going to take precious time, and when we're looking at new construction, that stuff burns in 5 minutes. That stuff burns in 5 minutes. If we're going to have a volunteer fire department, we need to have a plan to have and a schedule to have the houses staffed. And I don't see that plan. And I don't see firemen in the fire station, and that worries me too. And I'm worried about your fire insurance premiums, but more than that, I'm worried about the fire protection in the village.
Thank you, Dennis. Gene?
Okay, I mean, that to me is almost a disgraceful response, and it's almost an insult to all of our volunteer firefighters. I wish you were at the meeting last night that the Board of Trustees held. They had the volunteer firefighters there. They had the 3 chiefs there. They all, basically 2 of them spoke about the volunteer fire department, and there is no question in my mind, Fred, that this village is well protected by trained firefighters, trained volunteer firefighters, that I can go to sleep at night not worrying about what this micromanager basically is doing and looking at different things without really knowing. If he had a concern about those firehouses and our safety, was there a phone? Did you make a phone call to anybody? Did you call the village manager and ask them if there's a concern with your safety that we might be in trouble? Did you
Gene,
make that?
we shouldn't make
Okay,
that
I'm sorry.
precedent.
I'll take that back. Okay. I take it. I'm sorry, but I just want to say that it's very upsetting to hear this because it's an insult to our volunteer firefighters that are professional. They're trained and they do their job. They know, the chief said they're no sidewalk fire department where they just stand on the sidewalk and watch other people put out the fire. They know how to put out fires. They know how to go into structural fires. They know how to deal with the fire situations. I have no problem at all with the fact that our volunteer fire department is a volunteer fire department. It's the paid firefighters that are a supplement to that. And it's ranged from 1 to 16 over many years. So there's no magic number right now, and that's being discussed, and it's up to the village manager as to who he decides how many to hire. That's his position. It's a management prerogative.
But according to the village budget, 11 allocated, am I correct?
That
11
was
paid.
correct, yes.
For this present budget, 11 paid firemen, yet we only 3 are, okay.
Yes, you're right.
May I rebut, please?
Yes, you have a minute to do that.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Ciccarelli may be trying to put words in my mouth. I didn't say anything disparaging about our volunteer fire department, did I? They're interior and they're exterior trained, they're OSHA certified. When I was mayor, I went to pretty much every structure fire, working fire in the village. And we have 80, 100 people showing up. What I said was that they spend a lot of time in the firehouse, but they're not there 7 by 24. I haven't seen the village manager come up with the contingency plan to have 7 by 24 scheduling. I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm saying it hasn't been well managed. The Board of Fire Commissioners, Mr. Ciccarelli, in case you weren't aware, it's the 7 Board of Trustees and the village manager. You're absolutely right. So I think that we need a contingency plan if we're going to go in a different direction. I have not heard that any of the protocols have changed, and all I've heard is that the staffing goes down. There is a magic number. Call ISO and ask them.
Thank you. Blanca, you had a question?
Sure, doesn't matter, it's for both, so.
Okay, Dennis will take this one because Jean started several questions, so we'll let Dennis start this one.
The amnesty program seemed to have a lot of potential when it was first introduced, but now it seems more of a concern to homeowners and more problematic than, you know, what I guess it really wanted it to be. What would you change, or can you change anything if any of you become mayor?
The only thing we can't change, Blanca, is the speed of light. And that's what we have to understand here. Seriously, this is what they taught me in the private sector when I worked at GE, when I worked at Pepsi. And this is why these companies are great, right? Because we work around the obstacles. The amnesty program was put in place to be a carrot to the stick of tough code enforcement. It was designed to be helpful to people, not to be hurtful. The amnesty program has gone sideways. It's gone sideways because there was a majority on the board that when I was mayor, and frankly the village manager, who wanted the sign-up period to be short, who wanted to give not a lot of time in the worst economy since the Great Depression to make repairs, and I think that's wrong. What I'll do when I'm mayor, I will eliminate building permit fees in addition to the fines and the penalties. I'll give people more time to make repairs, and I will push hard for some kind of relief to people who have open permits that they discovered from before they bought their house. It just isn't fair to hold people responsible for problems they didn't create and even know about. We had a lax building department in the past because of a lack of technology or whatever. We had zero code enforcement in the past. Now all of a sudden we're waking up and finding things and we're holding people accountable. I'd use that $400,000 that they're using to design a new police station, and I would use that in conjunction with amnesty. Mr. Ciccarelli doesn't think 400 is a lot of money. You take 40, you give 1,000 to a person, it's 40 people you helped. I think that's something.
Okay, Jean?
Yeah, I think 400,000 is a lot of money, basically, and unfortunately has been wasted for the time that our mayor was in office and he let our buildings fall apart. We have to maintain it, and he thinks it's a funny issue, but I think you better laugh at the police station on that. I'd like to see you face the police officers on that. Anyway, back to the amnesty situation. It's basically, it was to give relief to the single family and two-family homeowners. It was meant to do that. It was meant to work. It was created during Mayor Pilla's time at that particular time, the amnesty program. And then if it was so good and it was supposed to bring help and not hurt the people, why did the people vote this man out of office? You know, that's what I can't understand. If there was such a good thing that was being done by this amnesty and it made people feel unheard and they were being helped, I just don't understand why he was voted out of office in 2013. They should have they should have welcomed him back with open arms. It's a permit amnesty. It's like not saying that somebody did something wrong. There was a lot of things that where people were complicit. There were lawyers involved with this. There was realtors involved with this back in the time when there was a lot of issues with the building department at the time. There was a lot of problems with it. But I think what I'd like to see, and there is relief. We just instituted relief. Back in 2013, we gave a 10-year window to allow somebody from 2010 back to produce proof that they've used their structure in a certain form, to say that there was something built on there or an extra garage, but it was part of the plan, that 10-year back would allow them to get like a legal non-conforming status.
Can I rebut?
Yes, you have a
Thank you very much.
minute to do that.
Real quick, I want to talk about two things, actually. So the $400,000 that's been pretty much wasted, in my estimation, on the police department design of the most expensive option, if you took that money and you allocated $100,000 of it to help with the soft costs for these new discoveries that people weren't aware of, right? That would be 100 people that you would help with $1,000. That's not insignificant, okay? And it's a much better use than designing a new village office. The 10-year window that Mr. Ciccarelli is talking about, that was adopted in 2013, is something that I pushed for and was in the hopper on the decision agenda of the board. It only deals with uses. It doesn't give people more time to make corrections. This program was renewed twice. That this gentleman voted for it. He didn't make a change. He didn't make a change. I want to change it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Any other questions, Fred? Oh, Brian?
Oh, so Taco Bell, which I loved, opened a few months ago. So my question is, like, what's your specific plan to bring new businesses into the village?
Did everybody hear that
Yeah.
question?
Repeat it for me then.
What's your specific plan to bring new businesses into the village for both candidates?
Okay, Gene, why don't you start?
Okay, I mean, basically, the municipal center will bring new businesses into the village. Once we start that building and give it once it gets into place and you have a police station, courthouse, you basically have a village hall, all under one roof, that should spark economic development in that neighborhood. This was done in Mr. Pillar's study that he had commissioned, clearly said that that area of the village would be an economic development boom, basically. Maybe not in those specific words, but an economic development driver to bring a better economy into this particular area. So it would be that as a spark to that, but yet we're seeing the things that we've worked on in the days of the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, which I was a member of at the time. All these things were a blueprint for the village, and all the things that were done to try to accommodate new businesses to come in, to make zoning a better and more and a better type of zoning for allowing businesses to come into the village. The Capitol Theater came in to spark more type of businesses to come into the village. The United Hospital Development Site will bring businesses into the village. The bulkhead would bring more businesses, because then we can complete our waterfront and bring more businesses into our downtown. Unfortunately, these major operations were left to die. They were left to die in 2013, and now we're bringing them forward to try to attract more businesses into this village.
Okay, Dennis?
Sure. Wow. We're bringing them forward. If you're bringing them forward, you're bringing them forward at a snail's pace, because the bulkhead is more falling into the river than when I left. You haven't done anything on it, to tell you the truth. There's an RFP out to design the repair. So you didn't even know how to fix it. And you're talking about 5 years ago. We're too stuck in the past. We have to look to the present. A municipal center will, we have one. We have a police department. We have 220 employees. That's not going to bring any jobs into this village. The construction temporary, maybe you're talking about. Look, we updated all the zoning laws. We updated the licensing laws. That lit up the downtown, but not the whole downtown, right? Look at South Main Street. Look at Westchester Avenue. There are grants that we could consider for another facade improvement program. I want to go for that. I want to put in a business improvement district. I wanted to do that for 4 years, but Mr. Pagano, when he was on the IDA, didn't want to, maybe because he was a property owner down there. I want to be able to have the people from DPW, put them and dedicate them down, or from the highway department, or if we have to hire additional people, put them in the downtown, let them shovel the snow for the NTA, let them shovel the snow in front of every store. That would become a valuable amenity that would attract more businesses into the downtown. It would make it more vibrant. There's a regional economic development corporations that the governor has. There's $2 million on the table. I want to put a consolidated funding application together for that, to light the place up with more businesses in the downtown.
Thank you.
Rebuttal?
Did you want to rebut, Gene?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. How much time do I have on
A
rebuttal?
minute.
1 minute. Okay, thanks. Okay. All right, you know, it's very interesting. You can easily deny the past. You can make it go away, but it's not going to go away. The record is the record, and that's what this record is of the 2007 to 2013 Miller administration. The 6 years that he had, the bulkhead was basically falling apart. Around 2006, they showed signs of deterioration on some of the walkway. He became the mayor in 2007. He had like 6 years to basically try to get things put in order. He looks at our 2 years where we have an RFP out for a design to try to repair and replace the bulkhead. But in that 6-year period, it's unconscionable that nothing to that bulkhead was basically done in that 6-year period of time. And it now fell into the water during that administration. 2010, it went down into the water, and it's still there now. And we are not, even though we had 2 years that we had just in this past, we are not letting that die. This is going to be done, and it will be done under my administration.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Fred, did you have?
For both candidates, do you feel that the present village manager has moved progressively forward as the village manager? Trustees have trust. Let me repeat it again. Do you feel that the present village manager has moved progressively forward as the village trustees have requested? Do you see necessary change with another village manager under your watch as mayor?
Gene?
Sure. As I said before, Chris Steers, I think, is the best manager that I've ever seen. I've worked with a lot of people in my career. I retired as an assistant chief with the Port Authority Police. I've met managers from all walks of life. I have never seen the level and quality that Chris Steers has brought to this village. I mean, Dennis may say he hired him. I don't know how one person can hire that village manager. I think our board is made up of a majority that you have to have 4 to hire. So I don't know if he was particularly the one that hired him, but if he wants to make that claim and take credit for it, he did a great thing because this guy is terrific. He runs a terrific village hall. He's responsible. He's responsive. I could pick up the phone and get him at any time of the day and night. He's on top of things. He's a well-educated, a very well-managing type of individual. He's got the support of his staff. They all huddle around this individual. I think he's terrific. I wouldn't change a thing with Chris Steers. I think he's terrific and he's great for the village.
Okay, Dennis?
Fred, that's a good question. Before I answer it, though, I just want to address something Mr. Ciccarelli said before about me denying the past. I'm proud of my accomplishments. Let me tell you something. We got a lot done when I was the mayor, right? Regarding the bulkhead and whatever he's saying, I very quickly brought in experts to assess what was going on there. And those experts told me and told the board, there's plenty of blame to go around. We had deals on the table with GNS, offers on the table to GNS, the same one that they've been sitting on for 2 years, quite frankly. And there was an obstructionist majority on the board that didn't want to move forward just so that the next candidate can make a claim like this and hold Portchester people as collateral damage. Regarding your question, though, I haven't been there in 2 years, but I'll tell you what my observations from the outside are. You got the same staff, you got the same manager, you have a more collegial board than when I was the mayor, and there's not a lot getting done. My observation from the outside is that the village manager works on a lot of stuff that's strategic. I have to tell you, Fred, base hit score runs also, right? Babe Ruth batted .634, I think it was. He struck out like 6 out of 10 times, okay? And you gotta load up the bases, and that's what we did. And people complained the meetings were long, but we got a sign ordinance and a sidewalk ordinance and a this ordinance and a that ordinance. We weren't just doing ministerial things. Staff needs to be held accountable. You have to continually assess what your personnel needs are. I haven't been there, I don't know, but ask me 30 days after I'm elected, I'll let you know.
Thank you, Dennis. Blanca?
Code enforcement continues to be a very hot button, and there seemed to be progress when Mr. Steers was our director of code enforcement, but that seems to die down. So as mayor, what would you do to address code enforcement and to make it seem like there is progress going on in terms of addressing, I don't know, illegal housing, overcrowded housing, etc.?
Dennis? Sorry.
Sure. Actually, when I was mayor, we created a dedicated code enforcement unit. to go after overcrowded housing. And in the time that I was mayor, we rooted out almost 300 illegal apartments. I don't think they've done 300 more, to tell you the truth, but I haven't looked at the stats to count them. What I have looked at, though, is there seems to be a shift in focus towards more trivial infractions like the height of your grass. So your question, though, is what would I do? I would shift the focus of code enforcement to more aggressively go after overcrowded housing. I would use proven detection methods. I told you I'm going to get my MPA, and I would use data that we can get from the school, that we've had from the school, that we haven't used from the school. I would use data that's available in terms of foreclosures, and I would filter and prioritize based on using this data. City of New York went from finding illegal apartments in 13% of the time to 80% of the time using those proven tactics. I would do that. I would push for a tenant registry program for absentee landlords. Okay? There's an excessive amount of code enforcement that's required in absentee landlords when the owner's eyes aren't there seeing what their tenants are doing. The taxpayers are paying for it. Other communities are doing it. We should do it also. And we have to do this with education and awareness, right? Because people have to be careful not to get into unsuspecting situations. And we have to make sure we have a safety net for people when we root out all these apartments. And that we talked about last night with emergency housing, et cetera.
Thank you. Gene?
Yeah, thanks, Blanca. It's a great question. Peter Miley, I think, is a great leader of that code enforcement division and also for the building department. My basic concern is safety. You know, I'm worried about the people that live in some of these substandard houses and the types of conditions that they live in, families with kids, that landlords have no concern about. They're interested in just getting the money from people to rent out a single room if they can and have a common area for other people to use. It's not fair. It's not fair for the people that live there, and it's a safety issue. And I mean, I don't want to see somebody, some fire someday burning families that get trapped in these deplorable types of houses. I think it's a necessary process to really go through this code enforcement very carefully. It protects our firefighters to make sure that they are safe, the emergency services personnel. I don't want people running into a house that they don't know that there's phony walls and windows and all kinds of changes that were made to the structure. So I don't want to, I don't want to see that happen. And I hate to go off on a little bit of a tangent, but I just think, because of the board that when Mayor Pillow was on the board, there was a divisiveness and a combativeness, and I'm starting to see the reason why for that, because he'll say things that kind of incense you. When he says like 300 that they did in that time period, he doesn't look at the statistics, and he admitted himself that he didn't look at the statistics. We actually did 1,200, okay, since that time, that he did 300, so we did 4 times the number of finding illegal apartments. And if you want to check that out, I can't talk to him, but if he wants to check that out, he can go to the building department and ask them for the numbers. It's 1,200, 4 times the numbers that we found that were illegal occupancies.
Thank you, Gene.
Can I have a quick rebuttal?
You can have a minute rebuttal.
Thank you very much. And listen, Gene is a nice guy, and Gene is going to be on the board, and I like Gene an awful lot, so I don't want to make it seem that we're arguing, because we're certainly not. And I'm really, really glad to hear that they found 1,200 illegal apartments, if that's the fact.
Occupancies.
Occupancies, okay, so whatever that means, right? But when I look at the stats and I see all of this trivial pursuit, I see a misfocus of resources. And when I drive these streets and I see the big garbage bins that give big clues that there's big numbers of people in these houses, there's a lot of wood that we still have to chop. So I think this is great. I give credit which credit's due. Miley's a great guy. The code guys seem like they're fine, or they're okay. It's management, it's leadership. We have to prioritize focus on overcrowded housing more than we are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A question from...
Yes, for both.
Hold on, from Richard.
The village manager is, I think, the highest paid employee in the village. And for the last 2 village managers, at least, neither one, Chris Russo lives in White Plains, Chris Steers lives in Rye Brook. Would you bring back the law that requires our village manager, like our police chief, I think, has to live in the village, to make it mandatory that they live in the village of Portchester?
Gene, why don't you start?
Sure. Number one, I don't feel that, if it's within a close proximity to the village of Portchester, I have no issue with that. I wouldn't want a village manager living, like, say, up in Brewster or something to that effect. I want a village manager close by, that if he has to respond to an emergency or something like that, he's here and he can do that quickly enough. So no, I don't have any problem. I don't think it's necessary to bring that back. Our police chief does not live in Portchester. He doesn't live in this village. He actually lives outside the village. And I still have no problem with that. I think he can be here within in a short time frame that gives me a basic comfort level with his response time. So, in answer to your question, no. If it's within proximity, I'd be okay with it.
Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Dennis?
That's a great question. That's a great question, Richard. I think there's merit to having a village manager that does live in the village, because you get to interact with the people, right? And you get to shop in the stores more than you would shopping in the neighborhood where you live. So I think there's a benefit to that. To say yes or no, honestly, I would have to consider how it's packaged, to be quite honest, right? I think if you're going to ask somebody to uproot and move, there are, corporations do that, right? And they provide relocation assistance, things like that. I think we need to attract and retain the best and brightest people that we could afford. And frankly, that's why I brought in Mr. Russo and pushed to bring in Mr. Russo. And when I say I didn't do it on my own, there's 4 votes. The mayor's the weakest mayor in all of New York State, actually, in the village of Portchester, right? But actually, as the leader of the board, I'm the guy who pushed for it. We need to attract the best and the brightest people to live in Portchester. If we can make it attractive for them to live in the village without breaking the backs of the taxpayers, I think that's something that really warrants consideration. Now, with technology and cameras and this and that, right, and cell phones, is it absolutely essential? I'm not sure that I would pay a tremendous premium for it, to be quite honest. But I do think it warrants further consideration. And I would consider it when I was the mayor when the appropriate time comes.
Can I ask a question
thank
on
you.
procedure, though, for this? I mean, I don't know how many questions. I mean,
We're going to
tomorrow-
wrap this up because it's about
Yeah.
8:30.
Yeah, okay.
So, if there aren't any other pressing questions, I would like to allow our candidates to give their closing remarks, 3 minutes each. Dennis, you get to start.
Sure, thank you very much. Once again, I want to thank the NAACP for hosting this event. I want to thank the people who came out, and really each and every one of you for your very, very thoughtful questions. I thought they were really, really great. Look, here's the bottom line. Gene is a really, really nice guy. I helped Mr. Ciccarelli get elected. I walked and we talked a lot, and we've been friendly towards each other. I appointed Gene to the Waterfront Commission. I appointed Gene to the, and when I say I was the guy who recommended his name that he be appointed, and the board approved. And I was the guy who recommended his name for appointment to the Master Plan Committee. So I think a lot of Gene. Gene is already a seated trustee on the board, and Gene will be on the board for another year, whether he wins or he loses. And the power that Gene has today is literally the same power from a policy-making perspective as he will have as mayor. The board consists of 7 people, a mayor and trustees. People think the mayor has more power, like Mayor de Blasio in New York City. That's not the case. Portchester is one of 11 villages in New York State out of 600 that use their own charter. A mayor is a trustee, gets a vote, and he can put an item on the agenda. So can he. When he becomes mayor, he's not going to get any more power. He could still put stuff on the agenda. I'm not sure how much stuff he put on the agenda or how much more he would, because the gavel doesn't really make you smarter. I'm not saying he's not, but you know what I mean? It doesn't give you more power. I look forward to working with Gene. I think he's a good guy. I think he's an independent guy, or he used to be. I do see, since his association with my mom used to say, tell me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. Show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. And I sense, frankly, in the Westmore News, I was kind of taken aback. But I'm not here to criticize. I think he's a good guy. He's going to be here. I think the voters in the village of Portchester, what they have to decide is if they want 7 people on the board or if they want to keep it 6. If they want to bring back somebody who has a proven record delivering results, who thinks out of the box with creative ideas, and who's going to school to learn more, who works well with others. I've never been a majority mayor, that's the fact. So I have a demonstrated record being collaborative, reaching across the aisle, as they say, and I have a demonstrated record delivering results. So I want to ask the people of Portchester to please give me the opportunity and support me so I can serve the village that I love, and so that I could bring Portchester forward and make it an even better place to live, work, and for us to enjoy. Thank you very much again. Have a good night.
Thank you. Gene?
Okay, yeah, my objection was at the beginning of this process was the video, basically, of Mr. Pillar's videographer that's in this room right now. And I don't want to make a commercial out of this. It wasn't my intent to come here. Otherwise, I would have brought my own photographer, basically, to post this, because this will be a Facebook thing tomorrow, and it'll be all glitzy with music and all kinds of bells and whistles with this. And it's, to me, I object to that, and I don't think it's fair. And I think it was pushed on us. You weren't aware of it, and it came our way. And I'm not going to use up my time to talk about it, but I'm just voicing my objection to it. Basically, I mean, Mr. Pillar talks about this as some kind of consolation prize for me, that I remain as a trustee and I continue on the board for another year or whatever, and we'll have this dynamic group together again. That he's going to move forward with his so-called majority. That he's looking forward to having a four-person vote. And I don't think that way. I don't think in four-person votes. I think in terms of what's best for this village. I don't think of delivering services to this village in terms of how you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. I just think of that we have to provide services to the village that give this village what it needs, no matter what a person's party affiliation is. It doesn't make any difference to me. I ran as an independent. I'm still an independent. The other parties came to me to endorse me. So there's no type of fellowship with me to go and say that I walk with certain people and I'm going to do the things that they expect me to do. The projects that were sitting in the 6-year term when Mayor Pillar was in office, these projects are critical. I mean, these were, if you want to talk about $400,000 studies that we threw out the window, which I don't believe we are, because we get a fixed price on a municipal center. We know what exactly it's going to cost. It's false to say it's $40 million. There's falsehoods that were written in the paper about this. $40 million is not ours. We're not buying this municipal center. It's not us to buy. The village will lease the municipal center. It's a lease operation by a nonprofit organization that's going to build this municipal center. So that $400,000 is to me, and I have to put it in a relative position, because yeah, for some it's small, some it's big. But when you compare it to the multi-millions that I think, Brian asked this question before, how would we bring more businesses into the village of Portchester? It's because of these development projects that fail. They fail to move forward. And if you think of the losses in terms of jobs, the economy, the things that we lost in that process, they run into the millions, not $400,000 worth, but millions, I would say, by not fixing that bulkhead, by leaving the United Hospital property to sit where it is and not being moved, and also the police station and the courthouse, and not getting this municipal center up and running, which the study was in place and made its recommendation to put it in Irving and Paningo, ignored that study that took $50,000 to pay for, down the drain, $50,000. And I then, okay, in closing, basically, thank you for this opportunity to speak to everybody tonight. I appreciate all the questions, and thank you to the NAACP again, and to my opponent, Mr. Pillar. It was a fair exchange, and that's it. Thank you very much.